Hey Utah fans, Jed Wonderly coming at you for the Utah Sports Report, and today's going to be a combined video. We're going to combine the highlights and my analysis of last week's game against Washington State with the preview of our game this Saturday against Arizona. Sorry it's a little bit late getting out, but I was in Boston last week from Wednesday through Sunday night for business, and the kind of had a lot of stuff that I needed to do when I got back. You know, some of it regarding the renovation on our house we're doing, and some, work stuff and a whole bunch of stuff like that. So we will see you on the other side with the highlights and my analysis of that Washington State game, and got a little bit of a surprise that I'm going to announce for, sometime, I don't know exactly when I'm going to do it, but it'll be sometime in November is my plan. And it's all about, we'll tell you on the other side.
For a first down. Nice. That's the shot I'm talking about. There it is. Over the middle. It's caught. Touchdown. Devon Valet. That's beautiful. I get Carlson a touch on the block. Carlson from deep, and we're tied.
Got the win. This is a victory lap of sorts for the super senior.
Ginormous double A.
Okay, Utah fans, Washington State fans, Arizona fans, any other fan, maybe some Ohio State fans, maybe some West Virginia fans, who knows? Hope you're all doing well, and let's get busy. First of all, my announcement. So when I was in Boston, we ate at some great restaurants and had a lot of lobster, had a fair bit of Italian. If you go to Boston and you haven't ever been there, even if you have, maybe you don't know about this place, but there's a section called the North End, and it's their Italian section. And a whole bunch of, you go to Hanover Street, that's the main street where all the good restaurants are and whatnot. There's probably some off the main street, but fantastic stuff. Fantastic. We ate at Bencato's, and I can't remember the name of the second place we ate. Both of those places were freaking awesome. The second place we ate was it was just across the street on the same side of Hanover. It was on the same side of Hanover, but just across the street, about 4 doors down from Modern. Now, Modern is a pastry shop that was recommended to me by a local there. And it was worth the recommendation. I mean, their cannolis were fantastic, kind of like a cannoli I had from my friend's mom back when I was in school, elementary school, that is. That's a long time ago, but it was so good I remember it. And this cannoli was fantastic. They also have some amazing other, Italian pastries and whatnot that are just fantastic. And we tried a few of them. And I'm wearing black to try to hide how many I tried. So, not quite true, but, it works. But at that second restaurant that we ate at, whose name I can't remember, we, really small, tables were all close together. We had the opportunity my wife and I, to sit next to a couple of young guys who were going to college. They were seniors. One was going to Harvard, the other one at University of Texas. They were both from Texas. The one friend was up visiting the other. Really nice young men, and turns out we had a fair bit in common, mainly college football. And so we had we probably talked for a half hour or so beyond our dinner conversation. And just really fun guys, good guys to talk to. And the one is majoring in economics. The one that's going to Harvard is majoring in economics, and he has a newsletter that you can subscribe to, kind of like a blog. I don't know if there's much of a difference or whatever. I think he calls it a newsletter, though. His name's Trey, and I highly recommend checking it out. It's the pigskin crap. Now I can't remember. I'm going to leave a link below in the comment section. It's I can't remember, pigskin something or another, but it's all about the business of college football, and it's very interesting. And I'm going to have him on as a guest. Sorry, I couldn't remember the name of it, Trey. That's what happens when you start getting a little older and you've only seen the name once or twice. But it is a clever name, and I do like it. And I'm going to have Trey on, and we're going to talk about NIL, because he wrote an article on NIL and some of the new regulations that have come about. And so I thought it would be fun to have him on to talk about a subject that a lot of people are talking about, because NIL is something that, if there's no regulation, and I'm not a huge fan of too much regulation, but I do think we need to try to make sure things are fair, and that some of these blue blood schools can't just go and give money willy-nilly and say it's for NIL when it really has nothing to do with NIL. So we're going to have a nice little episode on that sometime in November. That's my plan anyway. We also hope to have our house done in November, which means we'll be doing a lot of moving and whatnot. So it may not be until December, but November's the plan. So now let's get into Washington State. So Washington State, we kind of knew they'd be tough. They have a good defense. They've done fairly well. The only team that really scored a bucket load of points on them was Oregon. Ironically, they also scored a number of points on Oregon. I think the final score in that game was 44-41 or something like that. We beat them 21-17 with our backup quarterback at Washington State. And so that was, I think Bryson Barnes played pretty well. And, it's nice to be able to give him that game of experience so that he's a little more prepared. Talking about prepared, he didn't know he was going to go, neither did the coaches, until within less than an hour before kickoff. So he got just second team reps throughout game prep week. And, it was Cam who was preparing as if he was going to start, and his knee just wasn't good enough to go. He hurt his knee, I believe they said, in the third quarter of the USC game, and played out with it. He was probably pumped up on adrenaline, which helped him finish that game strong. Hopefully he'll be pretty much good to go on Saturday against Arizona. Unfortunately, it looks like Kincaid probably won't be. And if we could somehow get through Arizona and Stanford without him, give him time to rest and heal and get the treatments, whatever all they do, that would be fantastic, so that he's a little more prepared and more functional for Oregon, which is when we'll really need him at his best, or at least the best that he can be relative to the kind of injuries he has, whatever they are. Obviously, some of it has to do with his shoulder at the very least, considering how he fell on his shoulder on that one play in the Washington State game, where he was up in the air and the guy kind of pulled him down and he just slammed down all on that shoulder. So yeah, it could be interesting. We have that kind of thin at running back. Hopefully, it looks like Glover is getting a little better and picking things up. I'm very high on Glover. Looks like Jaquindon is also picking some things up. He had some nice runs against Washington State. And I'm a lot more confident in the receivers this year. They had some nice plays against Washington State as well. And I think that between a nice combination of our top 4 or 5 receivers and maybe throw in a little bit of, hopefully, production from our reserve tight ends like Yasmin and Munir McLean and some of those guys. I think Whit even talked about Taniela Pututau, who's, a tight end behind the other two, which would make him like 5th string if we actually had Keithy and Kincaid there. Is that fifth string? Yeah, he's getting pretty deep in the roster at any rate. So I think it'll be interesting to see. And I'm not including, can't remember his name, number 32. He's the blocking tight end. I'm not including him in that group just because he hasn't had a reception yet. He has had a lot of plays, and it's always about blocking, and he is a road grader and does a really good job with what he does. But that's why I didn't mention his name, along with the fact that I just blanking out on his name. But anyway, Logan Kendall, there you go. So see, I can get it sometimes. I'm not that old. So I think we'll do okay. Another thing that concerns me is that a couple of things on the injury side. Clark Phillips got a little dinged up, and I can't remember if he played at all after that or not. Hopefully it wasn't too bad, and they just kept him out for precautionary reasons. And hopefully he'll be back at 100% or close to it this week. The other thing that happened is Paul Miley, our center, who I think does a great job at calling the blocking schemes and whatnot. He left the game toward the end of the game, and I don't think he returned. And again, hopefully it was like, hey, looks like we've got this game in hand. Let's just let our backup, handle it, get a little game experience, and hopefully Miley will be back because that could be key. Although, and we'll talk about this in a bit, I think it's the Arizona is 125th in defense. So, I do think we would certainly benefit from having our starting center in there. One for snaps, making sure that he's got whoever's quarterbacking, hopefully Cam, gets good snaps. But the other thing is because we need to have good blocking schemes for whatever pass play or whatever run play and whatever kind of defense they're showing, so that we can make the most of our offense. So let's take a look at a few highlights. I can tell you that with only, I can't remember how many yards of offense we had, 340, right in there, between 340 and 350, I think. And 3 touchdowns. So really not a lot of great highlights just because of a lack of offensive production. Again, against a pretty solid Washington State defense with our backup quarterback who didn't have a lot of, didn't have any actual first string reps. And, thin at the running back. Our main tight end, Dalton Kincaid, already banged up before the game, then got extra banged up during the game and actually left after his touchdown and didn't return. That shoulder was an obvious pain. So not a lot of highlights, but there's still some good things to see. I really liked, Jalen Glover had a couple of really solid runs, and he also did a really good job picking up a guy. I believe the guy was blitzing. I don't think it was an offensive line or a defensive lineman he picked up, but did a good job picking up that blitz, which was one of the things that they had said was maybe limiting his playing time, is that he wasn't as familiar as he needed to be with the blocking schemes on blitz pickups and that type of thing. And he showed that he, at least for that play, is improving in that area. Jaquindon Jackson made a couple of nice runs. There was that kind of, it was a fumble. I don't know if who's getting the blame. It was not really a good transition relative to the handoff between Bryson Barnes and Jaquindon. I know that Whittingham said in the press conference after the game that he has to take a look at the video to see what went wrong and what they can do to correct it. So, but that nonetheless, he had some good runs. It's fun to watch him, have some good success. Love to see him continue to develop. He's got great size, very good speed. He runs a little high. I'd like to see him get a little lower, but he did get kind of low one time, and he ran over the safety to the point where the safety had to leave the game and didn't return. and while that's fun to see a player run another player over and whatnot, especially if it's your player doing the running over, I feel bad about anybody who gets injured. So I'm sure he'll be okay though. So there was that. I've been high on Money Parks for a while, and I hope to, with the injuries that we have, I'm hoping to see Money get some more targets this game against Arizona, because I really think he's got good hands. He's been proven to be consistent with regard to that, and making some somewhat difficult catches, not just easy pitch and catch. So I think hopefully he'll see an increased role against Arizona. Also, Jalen Dixon with the second amazing catch of the year. The first one was a touchdown a number of weeks ago where he made a really good grab for I can't remember how long it was, 30 plus, 40 plus yards, something like that. Made a fantastic catch on that, and made another really good catch on a difficult play this last week against Washington State. So Kincaid did Kincaid things in spite of being playing banged up, and even on that touchdown after he had already really kind of hurt his shoulder quite a bit with the play earlier in the game. You had Bryson Barnes, did his best Cam Rising impersonation, with some key runs where he picked up some first downs that were very important to keep the drives alive. Also made some good passes. He had some passes that were left a little to be desired, but overall I think he played really well, especially lacking any first team reps during the week of preparation. So on the other side of the ball, we made some really good plays. I'm particularly liking Van Fillinger as looks like he's starting to pick up his play, getting to the quarterback a little bit more, and doing a little bit better job sealing the edge. I'll tell you that Jonah Ellis also did some good things today. And, a lot of the defense did some good things. But so I hope you enjoyed those highlights, and hopefully we have a lot more highlights against Arizona. So let's talk a little bit about Arizona. Arizona is 125th out of 126 teams in the country on defense. They're quite the opposite on offense. I don't know exactly where they rank. I think they're third or fourth or something like that on total yards per game. Top 10 anyway. I'm pretty sure. They average 575 point something yards per game. We're at I can't remember, 450 something per game. So we're close to that. They have 3 receivers. Well, okay, so their leading receiver is 817 total yards on the season. Their second receiver is 756, and their third receiver is over 500. So they have 3 receivers over 500 receiving yards on the season. Then they have, I can't remember if they have a receiver in the 400s. They might. Seems like they had 5 receivers that are over 300 yards. But at any rate, their passing game is what they rely on. They do average 135.5 yards per game rushing, which is not bad, especially for a team that is very reliant on the passing game, which averages 340 and 1/8 yards per game. So you'll see a lot of passing. Now the good thing is that so Jaden Delore is the starting QB. If you recognize his name, it's probably because you knew or remember that he played for Washington State and transferred after last season to Arizona, and has shown that he can be somewhat of a prolific passer. I wouldn't put him in the category of Cam, even though he has a lot more yards than Cam. His completion percentage is, I think, just under 63%. So that's a good thing. Also, I like to look at how many yards per point a team has, and that's kind of a measure of offensive efficiency. And with Arizona, they're at about 14.615 yards per point. So they average just over 32 points a game, and they average, like I said, 475 and change yards per game. So it's about 14.6 something. I kind of rounded it when I did the calculations. So 14.615 isn't exactly accurate, but very, very close. We, on the other hand, we average, our scoring average went down a little bit against after the Washington State game, since we were averaging like 40.4 points per game and only scored 21. So we're down at 38.3 points per game. So about 6 points more per game than Arizona. But we are, with that, we also are averaging a few less yards, about 20 less yards, give or take, than Arizona. So our yards per point is like 11.8 or 11.9, something along those lines. So we're obviously quite a bit more efficient than Arizona. And so my hope is that, considering the pass completion rate for Delora, always on defense, I want to hold the opposing team below their averages. So if we could hold him at least at his average or below, like maybe in the upper 50s, that would be great. If we could hold them below 340 yards, preferably below 300, although I don't think that's what happened against USC. I can't remember the stats that they had against USC, but I think they racked up over 500 yards. I think they actually got more than their average in everything, because they also scored 37 points and they only averaged 32. So they did better than their average against USC. I'd love to see us hold them below their average in both rushing and passing yards, certainly in points. With them having the 125th ranked defense, it's interesting to note that their leading tackler is a linebacker. He's got 58 tackles, but the next three leading tacklers are the two safeties at 51 and 50 tackles apiece, and a cornerback at 38 tackles apiece. So that says that teams are probably getting decent chunk yardage plays when the third level is making that many tackles. So hopefully we can be in a position to do that. I'd love to see, and I think we will see a little different offense this week, just because we don't have the tight ends that we're used to rely on, both Keithy, of course, for a while, and now Kincaid probably isn't going to be there. I'm not planning on him for sure. And I just don't know how productive our other tight ends could be. I'd like to see Munir McClain get a few more targets, but I would love to see Money Parks get more targets. Jalen Dixon probably earns some more targets. Of course, Vele, it was interesting to see how Bryson Barnes targeted the receivers. I think he spread it out a bit more than Cam, and Solomon Enos got a catch. Not that Cam hasn't targeted Solomon. I think he did when Solomon got back from his injury, and he might have had an incomplete on that one. At any rate, there was a different emphasis on the targets with Bryson Barnes, and I don't necessarily think that was on purpose. I just think that that's, he'd see somebody and he'd say, okay, he looks open or open enough for me to throw it, and he would do it. Cam, I think, is a little more comfortable going through his progressions. But, there's a primary receiver on every play you run, and so, the goal is to try to get it to that primary receiver if they aren't completely covered, or, also depending on how the other receivers are being defended. So, but this game, I do think, because of our injury situation and how we are at running back, unless there's a surprise and we see Tavion Thomas playing again. He didn't travel against Washington State, so he had no opportunity to play against Washington State. Now, I haven't heard a thing about whether or not Tavion will play, but who knows? Maybe he's had a good week of practice and his attitude's been good, and he's going to earn some reps. But that said, whether or not he does, I do think because of our tight end situation and with Cam back, I think we're probably going to see a little bit more of a focus on our receivers. So I look for Vele to get a number of targets and maybe even break the 100-yard receiving mark. I wouldn't be surprised if Money also got several more targets, maybe 5 to 7 or 8 targets. And because Money has that big play capability, either for catching the ball kind of in the mid-range and then running after the catch, or having longer catches, 20-plus yards, I wouldn't be surprised if maybe he approached 100 yards or even broke it. I'd love to see him have a breakout game. I'm a fan of Money. I love Money. I'd like to have more in my wallet. Different kind of money. Sorry. Got off track there. I'm digging Money. And Jalen Dixon made a great catch, as you saw, in that Washington State game. And, and both those guys are fast. I could see, a couple of plays where they're doing the jet sweeps. I'd love to see Jalen get the ball maybe in some kind of maybe a slant or a wheel route or something like that, where he gets an opportunity to make a big play. And so I think our wide receivers are going to definitely come into play a little bit more. Might even see Makai Cope, who had 3 catches in a game several games back. He's got 4 on the season. And, maybe Enos will get a little more involved as well. So, and I certainly think that Jalen and Jaquindon are going to have, the opportunity to get some good runs. And hopefully, I'd love to see Jalen have a breakout game and maybe get 100-plus yards. It'd be awesome if Jaquindon could do that as well. And hopefully Cam's back and almost 100%. If he's not 100%, I don't think at this point of the season anybody's completely 100% unless you're a backup and haven't gotten a lot of reps. So it'd be nice if our offense could have to rely less on Cam's running. And if Cam does run, hopefully he doesn't get hit. Hopefully he can pick up the yardage he needs and then get out of bounds without a hit, so that, whatever's wrong with whatever knee he injured, he doesn't have any kind of extra wear and tear on that. So anyway, please like and subscribe. Still 3 subscribers away from that 200 mark, that milestone, that immense high milestone. So please like and subscribe. Also, just as importantly, if not more so, I'd love to hear your comments on what you think is going to happen in the game. What do you think the score is going to be? Because we still have the score challenge, always have the score challenge. Shout out to Larry Pilgrim, who won the last 2. He won for the game against USC, and then also last week against Washington State. So congrats, Larry. So predict your score. Let me know who you think the winning team's going to be. It's got to be in before the start of the game, and we'll go from there. It's $5. $5 if you win. So go ahead and predict that. Also, let me know your thoughts on how you think our defense is going to hold up against Arizona. Let me know your thoughts on how our offense is going to do, and what you think the offense is going to do. Are we going to how much more are we going to rely on our receivers? Are our receivers alone going to get 200-plus yards? Let me know. Let me know what you think. How's Cam going to do? Is he going to have a 300-yard-plus passing game against a 125th ranked defense? I would be surprised if we don't get over 500 yards, even with the injuries that we have. I'm going to say we get over 500 yards. I think it'll be a little more of an... Now, we're favored by 18, which is also crazy to me. But, so let's say, I'm going to say the score, I think we get back in the 40s again. So I'm going to say the final score is going to be Utah 45. I know, that means we get a field goal. I'm having hope that sometime we're going to get a field goal, because we probably will need one at some point. and I'm going to say 45-31. And if we can keep them in the 20s, that'd be great. But that's what I'm going with. So Jed Wonderly with the Utah Sports Report. Look forward to hopefully talking about some great highlights and a great Utah victory next week. But until then, I hope you enjoy the game. Hope you have some great food and it's a great atmosphere, whether you're there or whether you're watching at home with friends and family. And we'll see you next time on the Utah Sports Report. And as always, go Utes.